Well, by now, you've likely heard Washington state is facing a multi-billion-dollar budget deficit. Some Democrats say a wealth tax could be the funding solution.
Now a nonprofit wants all Washingtonians to stay educated and pay attention to what's going on in Olympia.
Let's follow the money. About a year ago, state finances looked rosy. At that time, Governor Inslee approved an extra $2 billion to a nearly $70 billion operating budget. That was March 2024. Then just 8 months later, in November 2024, the Office of Financial Management sounded the alarm, saying the state was $10 to $12 billion in the hole over the next 4 years. But wait, a month later, in December 2024, that number jumped to $16 billion.
Now we have a budget shortfall is even greater than that, as much as $16 billion.
Now in the midst of this year's legislative session,
let's talk about the challenge immediately before us.
And a new governor at the helm, there is still no exact consensus on what the exact budget deficit will be.
Even people who are currently in office, I mean, the leaders in Olympia are saying different numbers.
Enterprise Washington, a nonprofit, has launched this website, budgetbreakdown.org, a site with publicly sourced data tracking state spending going back a decade.
3 years ago, the state had a $14 billion surplus. In those 3 years, the economy has been good and strong. In just the last 4 years, the state has taken in 25% more in taxes just over the course of the last 4 years. And so it's hard to get it all to add up.
Enterprise Washington says the reason for the deficit is in part that state spending went up around 40% in just the last 4 years.
You could still be in a deficit because the state is spending substantially more.
The nonprofit says the state is projected to collect $10 billion more in tax revenue over the next 4 years, but spending will outpace that by $12 billion. Paul Graves says there are other variables that can complicate the budget outlook. For example, the state took in billions in federal aid dollars during the pandemic. The question is whether some of those programs are considered one-time or ongoing.
We're not taking any stands on any piece of legislation or spending or taxes.
Enterprise Washington usually advocates for the business community, but they say this time it's not about pushing or blocking any specific legislation. Instead, they want to empower the public to pay attention to the people they put in office and how they're spending your dollars.
Enterprise Washington's data shows that when it comes to the last 10 years, state spending has gone up 114%. So if you're interested in the breakdown of that and more about the state budget overall, we have a link on our website, fox13seattle.com.